Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, everybody. So today we'll be reading from Chaitanya Caritamrta. So I'm very grateful for all the morning weekly reading group who gets together every weekday, I think Monday through Fridays, and discusses the various pastimes of Chaitanya Caritamrta. And they are reading this every day. So by the Krishna, we are going to discuss today a very sweet chapter of Chaitanya Caritamrta. This is chapter number 15 from Madhya Lila, and the title of the chapter is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya Offers Prasadam. For those of you who may be new to Chaitanya Caritamrta, it is a very, very sweet and extraordinary scripture that speaks to the bliss of devotional service. And it doesn't matter where you start in Chaitanya Caritamrta. It is like a rasgulla. No matter where you taste it from, whatever side, it is sweet. And this is Chaitanya Caritamrta. No matter what side you taste it from, where you begin, where you end, it is so wonderful and blissful. So today we'll be discussing from the middle section of Chaitanya Caritamrta, but it is a perfect place to start if anyone is new to this wonderful Shastra. So we'll discuss this pastime in different angles. I'm working under the instruction of my wife, particularly during COVID-19. It is advised to follow the instructions of wife while you're in quarantine. So she has asked that we speak specifically about this offering of prasadam to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his great wife. So we'll focus on that. We'll talk a little bit about the beginning of the chapter as well. So just we'll chant the auspicious invocation for reading Chaitanya Caritamrta. So before we read Chaitanya Caritamrta, we always open with this prayer. So you can repeat after me. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so I'll read Prabhupada's introduction to chapter 15, and then we'll read several verses throughout. There are 270 something verses, so of course we cannot discuss all of them, or even most of them. We'll discuss just a few of them. There are 302 verses, so it would take quite some time to get through them, but we'll discuss kind of different areas of this wonderful chapter and try to understand the mood and some of the key lessons from this beautiful pastime. And of course, like always, as best we can, love to make this interactive. So if anybody has any comments or questions, you love people to share their own realizations and experiences with these pastimes, that would be most blissful. And someday when we can be in person again, we can have a much more in-depth dialogue, but we'll do the best we can under the current circumstances. So I'll just again read the introduction that's presented by Srila Prabhupada, of chapter 15. The Lord accepts prasadam at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The following summary of this chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhava Bhashya. After the Rath Yatra festival, Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu worshipped Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with flowers and tulasi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in turn worshipped Advaita Acharya with the flowers and tulasi that remained on the offered plate, and said a mantra, Yo asi asomi namostute. Whatever you are, but I offer my respects unto you. Then Advaitacharya invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for prasadam. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees performed the notes of ceremony, the Lord dressed himself as a cowherd boy. Thus ceremony was very jubilant. Then the Lord and his devotees observed Vijaya Dasami, the victory of when Lord Ramachandra conquered Lanka. The devotees all became soldiers of Lord Ramachandra, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the ecstasy of Hanuman, manifested various transcendental blissful activities. Thereafter, the Lord and his devotees observed various other ceremonies. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked all the devotees to return to Bengal. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent Nityananda Prabhu to Bengal for preaching, and also sent Ramadas, Gadadhar Das, and several others with him. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with great humility, sent some Jagannath Prasadam with a cloth from Lord Jagannath to his mother through Shivas Thakur. When the Lord bade farewell to Raghav Pandit, Vasudev Datta, the residents of Kuligram, and other devotees, Kulinigram, he praised them for their transcendental qualities. Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan asked some questions of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed them that all householder devotees must engage themselves in the service of Vaishnavas, exclusively devoted to chanting the holy name of the Lord. He also instructed the Vaishnavas from Kanda, as well as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Vidya Vachaspati. He also praised Murari Gupta for his firm faith in the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra. Considering the humble prayer of Vasudev Datta, he established that Lord Sri Krishna is qualified to deliver all the conditioned souls. Thereafter, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was accepting prasadam at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma's son-in-law, Amoga, created trouble in the family with his criticisms. The following morning, he was attacked by the disease of Visuchika, cholera. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very kindly saved him from death, enlivened him in chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sadhajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwamanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Rajakalpataribhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So once again, thank you for this opportunity, and all the members of this reading group for this opportunity to discuss what you all are reading. I'm grateful that it gave me an opportunity to read this most beautiful chapter. So this, just a little bit of context. So today we'll spend primarily talking about the pastime of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his invitation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to honor prasadam in his home. And then very sweetly how they served him. And then a very instructive pastime of how the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Amoga, offended Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how he was delivered from that. And so we're going to speak importantly about some different angles of vision of that pastime. But as a little bit of an introduction, because the beginning of this chapter is also very, very enlivening and very sweet. And so we would be remiss not to discuss a little bit about the beginning of this chapter as well. So this chapter, it follows the celebration of the Rath Yatra festival. And as some of you may know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would celebrate the Lord Jagannath Rath Yatra festival in extraordinary and exquisite ways. Very sweet ways he would celebrate these pastimes. And all the residents of Navadvip would come and enjoy these pastimes with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Navadvip, they were enjoying the association and sweet pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But after taking sannyas, they were separated from him. And so there was great love and pain in separation. And so when they were reunited in Jagannath Puri, you can imagine the very festive atmosphere and the very sweet mood that would be taking place as they are reunited. We know how much the residents of Vrindavan were separated from Krishna when he left for Mathura. Like that, the residents of Navadvip and Bengal were missing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they would get together during the Rath Yatra festival. And the chapter that begins here speaks about after Rath Yatra, how they were celebrating different festivals and different activities. Particularly, they talk about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees would, celebrate Janmashtami, dressing up as cowherd boys. One would dress up as Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba. They would carry, pots of milk and yogurt on their sticks, and they would twirl, and everybody would be bathed in milk and yogurt, and very sweetly celebrating the different pastimes. They celebrated, Deepavali, and they celebrated, the defeat of Ravan by Lord Ramchandra, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes a very ferocious form of Hanumanji and starts breaking down the walls of Lanka, and like this. So very, you can imagine, very sweet, just like we enjoy the festivals, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was enjoying these festivals with his devotees. So these pastimes are described very beautifully in the beginning of this chapter. But in the early parts, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows us a very important message as he bade farewell to the devotees. And to Advaita Acharya, Lord Nityananda and Srivas Thakur specifically, he sent them back to their town, because this mood of Krishna consciousness, yes, it is about and there's a beautiful purport here. Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness, very simple. It is about chanting, feasting, and dancing. The three ings: chanting, dancing, and feasting. Well, but the ultimate mood of the devotee is to go out and spread this message and to be compassionate to the fallen souls. And so he bade farewell to Advaita Acharya, asking him to preach to even the most fallen of the fallen. He asked, somebody can go on mute, let's see. It's a little bit loud. So he asked them to go preach. The Lord Nityananda, he sent to basically go door to door and begin preaching this message. And to Srivas Thakur, he asked that you continue on your Harinams. Of course, Srivas Angan is like the epicenter of Harinam, and he asked him to do that. And there he asked Srivas Thakur to perform one nice service, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very humbly offers and sends some Mahaprasad from Lord Jagannath for his dear mother. And he sends a very sweet message for his mother. One of the, I think, the sweetest parts of the whole Chaitanya Caritamrta, where Mother Sachi is in deep separation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And sometimes, when she makes special preparations that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu particularly likes, when she is doing the offering, she is especially lamenting that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not able to come and eat them. But sometimes when she does the offerings and she opens her eyes, she sees the plate is empty. And she thought, oh, did I forget to make the plate? And then she goes and looks in the pots. The pots look kind of full, so she's not sure. She thinks, did some animal come and eat? So she's always confused. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sends a very sweet message to Sachimata through Srivas Thakur and says, you tell my mother that whenever you think that you want me to come and eat your offerings, I am actually coming and eating. And then he said he wanted to give her some proof. And he said, recently after the Vidayadashmi, the conquer over Lord Ramachandra, Lord Ravan, I came to your house and ate the offerings. So to give her some faith that actually he was coming. And so he says that every day actually he would come and offer his obeisances to his mother and reciprocate with her very nicely. So very sweet set of verses Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, and he sent that with Srivas Thakur, that prasad for his mother. Now we see also in the mood of Raghav Pandit. Raghav Pandit is a great devotee and especially skilled in cooking and a very expert cook. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very lavishly glorifying Raghav Pandit's service. And we can learn something very important from this service. Raghav Pandit was living amidst tons of trees of fruits and coconuts. Yet he would travel 20 miles to a particular place where special coconuts were available. Even though they were much more expensive, he would go and buy those coconuts, come all the way back. He would submerge them in water to keep them cool. And then when there was time to make the offerings to Krishna, he would cut the tops. He would offer the coconuts. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually explaining, that sometimes the coconuts would come back empty because Krishna had enjoyed those coconuts. And sometimes he would bring them full. When they were empty, then Raghav Pandit would open the coconut, take the malai, and put it on a plate and offer that back to Krishna. And sometimes that malai then would get eaten. And in like this way, Raghav Pandit was being reciprocated with deep love. And you can see that, he wasn't taking the easy way out, going extraordinary distances, getting the absolute best for Krishna. And this is the mood of service. Whatever our capacity is. Raghav Pandit had great capacity. And so he put forth that. Was not thinking, oh, I have coconuts right here. It's good enough. No, only the best. One time his servant was bringing the coconuts and he touched the ceiling above the doorway. And then he had touched the coconuts. Now we know how much effort it takes to get those coconuts, right? Such far distance he had gone, paid big money for those coconuts. But as soon as they were touched, he said, throw them out. Why? Because when people are coming in through the doorway, the dust blows in the air. And the dust might hit the ceiling from the feet of people. And he had touched the ceiling and then the coconuts. He considered those coconuts impure. Now we might think, oh, we just wash it and offer it. But Raghav Pandit was so precise in his service, so determining. And we see this importance of no detail is too fine. Of course, we are serving again according to our capacity. So we have to be practical in that. But the idea, the consciousness is that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not just some, casual endeavor. You are serving the Supreme Lord. And so Raghav Pandit, he said a series of, if you read those verses, they're very inspirational in how he used to offer and the different foodstuffs. So very, very sweet part. Then we come to a very important part of this section, and I wanted to read a couple of verses because it's very relevant to us, and it also sets us up for the next part of the discussion, which is the discussion with Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan. So these two great devotees asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a very important question. So this important question they asked, hear the question. Satyaraj Khan said, this is text 103, "My dear Lord, being a householder and a materialistic man, I do not know the process of advancing in spiritual life. I therefore submit myself unto your lotus feet and request you to give me orders." So this is very relevant to all of us, right? As householders. What should we do? So Krishna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is giving a very precise and direct answer. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "Without cessation, continue chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. Whenever possible, serve him and his devotees, the Vaishnavas." So two things. Chant and serve the Vaishnavas. Those are the two primary responsibilities of a Grihastha. Chanting and serving the Vaishnavas. And we'll see this very nicely with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Then Satyaraj inquired though, "How can I recognize a Vaishnava? Please let me know what a Vaishnava is. What are his symptoms?" Good question. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "Whoever chants the holy name of Krishna just once is worshipable and is the topmost human being. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all reactions of sinful life. One can complete the 9 processes of devotional service simply by chanting the holy name." And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continues to glorify chanting, and these purports are very powerful. And one of the things that we see here is actually it takes only once to chant the name of the Lord without offenses to achieve perfection. So we are trying to chant even just once purely. And that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. So when there's asked, who is a Vaishnava? One who chants the holy names of the Lord without offenses. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then finally advised, one who is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is understood to be a Vaishnava. Therefore, you should offer all respects to him. And the purport here is very, very nice. There was one particular part I was going to read. This line that Prabhupada writes at the end of this purport. It is the duty of the householder to offer respects to such unalloyed Vaishnavas. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. So we're getting very direct instructions that are applicable to all of us as householders. Chant the holy names of the Lord and serve the Vaishnavas. Who is a Vaishnava? One who is chanting the holy names of the Lord, particularly without offenses. Right? So we see that. Then this story continues to another very important and very beautiful section, which is the prayer of Vasudeva Datta. Vasudeva Datta is a great, great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we'll see his character. He's so dear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks Shivananda Shen that please take care of Vasudeva Datta. He is not so responsible in managing his financial matters, so his family is sometimes at risk. So please take care of him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very concerned about his dear devotee. And Vasudeva Datta, I want you also to hear the mood of prayer. You know, when we pray to Krishna, there's a particular mood of prayer that we can follow by the great devotees. And so, see his mood. See Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood. This is in text, Vasudeva Datta's mood. This is in text 161. Very instructive. If we learn to pray this way, it'll be very important for us. He says,
My Lord, you are certainly able to do whatever you like, and you are indeed merciful. If you so desire, you can easily do whatever you want. Now, you see his mood. His mood was not, can you please do this? Can you please give me this? No, his mood was, if you so desire. And this is the mood that we can approach Shri Shri Radha Kunjaya. My dear Shri Shri Radha Kunjaya, if you so desire, please remove this fault-finding nature of my heart that we'll discuss with Amoga in the coming moments. But this mood of asking from the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva Datta shows us very perfectly. So, in asking his petition, he now makes his request. And what his request is? My dear Lord, my heart breaks to see the sufferings of all the conditioned souls. Therefore, I request you to transfer the karma of their sinful lives upon my head. My dear Lord, let me suffer perpetually in hellish condition, accepting all the sinful reactions of all the living entities. Please finish their diseased material life. Now, one question. How many of us have prayed to Krishna like this? We said, take all my sins. Take all my sins. But Vasudeva Datta is the true mood of a devotee. Is para dukkha dukhi. His only pain is seeing the pain of others, the suffering of others. So he says, let me take their sins. But Srila Prabhupada comments in the purport a very important and significant distinction of Vasudeva Datta's prayers compared to others. His prayer was not that let them be free of their sins, but then they go back to sinning again. He says, please finish their diseased material life. He wanted them not only to be free of all their sins, but that they would become pure and go back home to Godhead, so that they would be eternally saved. And that is the great mood that Vasudeva Datta exemplifies here. Not only is he willing to accept the sins, but he's asking to free them from re-sinning. Means to purify the heart. And Prabhupada talks about in the purport about this idea of we atone for our sins and then we sin again and sin atone. There's no value. And he speaks about Jesus Christ, who died for all the sins on the cross, which is actually being observed tomorrow as Good Friday. That is the significance of that. And the great devotee, the great Jesus Christ, died for the sins of his disciples. And Vasudeva Datta has gone even further by asking not only to take their sins, and not only the sins of his disciples, but of all living entities, not just those who are following him. So we see an extraordinary move. Now, what we see in the response to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very instructive. How to please Krishna? We know. Serve his devotees. So see how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu responds to the ask. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is verse 166. Whatever a pure devotee wants from his master, Lord Krishna, doubtlessly grants, because he has no other duty to fulfill than the desire of his devotee. If you desire the deliverance of all living entities within the universe, then all of them can be delivered, even without your undergoing the tribulations of sinful activities. This is how powerful a pure devotee of the Lord is. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Vasudeva Datta, if you want them to be free of their sins, if you want it, Krishna has no other activity but to fulfill the desires of his pure devotees. But you don't even have to take their sins. He'll just make it happen. Like that. So if we really want to please Krishna, we should please the pure devotee like Vasudeva Datta. Because if Vasudeva Datta just desires all the living entities free of sin, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Krishna has no other duty than to fulfill the desire of his devotees. So we see Vasudeva Datta's wonderful mood of service, point 1, and point 2, mood of prayer, and point 2, the power of the pure devotee of the Lord in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so if we really want Krishna to fulfill our prayers, we ask the prayers of his devotees. Because Krishna may or may not listen to our prayers. Of course he does. But he certainly answers the prayers of his devotees. And that is why we are so fortunate, beyond comprehension, to be able to serve these most wonderful deities in the Devasadhan Mandir. Because Srila Prabhupada, a pure devotee of the Lord, sent by Krishna himself, he asked the deities one specific thing, and this is noted from those who were there. He prayed to the deities, please accept the service of my disciples and followers, even if it has some mistakes and faults in it. Now, do we have any doubt that these most merciful deities, Shri Radha Kunja Vihara Gauranitai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maya, will accept our service because a pure devotee of the Lord has asked? Of course, that doesn't give us license to be lazy. We should follow the mood of Raghav Pandit, and as we'll see, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. But this is the potency of a pure devotee of the Lord. And so this pastime of Vasudeva Datta, that this pastime itself, honestly, we could spend 1 or 2 sessions on. There's so much nectar there, and maybe someday we'll come back to it, because it's a very, very powerful. But I have to obey my orders and discuss the pastimes of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, which are very, very sweet. So just for context, who is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a very erudite scholar. By the time we come to this pastime here in Chaitanya Caritamrta, he has already become a devotee. But let's rewind a few chapters ago, where he was an elite scholar of Vedanta, but he was an impersonalist. He studied in Mithila, and he was known that he had memorized virtually all of Shastra. He was an extraordinarily powerful. He was serving in the court of King Prataparudra as his chief scholar, his Sanskrit scholar. So he was a very elevated person. He was a high-class Brahmana, married as Grahastha. And even though he was a Grahastha, he was a guru to many sannyasis on Vedanta. But he was an impersonalist. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas upon the order of Mother Sachi, came to Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu alone went to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. And there he had an ecstatic transformation, having darshan of the Supreme Lord of the Universe. And he fainted. I'm just summarizing very quickly this pastime. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there and noted this very beautiful young man. He was only 24 years at the time, and very golden effulgence, and had him taken to his house where he could, revive him from his ecstatic trance. He had fainted. And there, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, being a little bit puffed up, proud of his scholarship, thought to take this boy under his guidance and take him as his disciple. And said, you are a sannyasi, I can elevate your status if you want, and I can instruct you on the real aspects of Vedanta. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just said, okay, you speak. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for 7 consecutive days spoke about everything he knew. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't say one word. He just said. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya finally after the 7th day asked, you're sitting here silently. This process is about questions and answers. Have you understood anything? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very, quickly says, I understand Shastra, but I don't understand anything you are saying because you have completely confused the matter. Your word jugglery is confusing what is very easy to see. He compares it to the sun. It's not so difficult to perceive the sun. This Shastra is not so difficult to perceive. But by your manipulation, everything has become confused. And they enter into some discussion, some debate. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very quickly smashes all of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's positions. They discuss a couple of verses. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu establishes. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya immediately surrenders to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Wow! Who is this great personality? And he composes 100 verses glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, shows him a very powerful form, this six-armed form, this Sadbhuj form, with 2 arms showing bow and arrow, 2 arms showing flute, and 2 arms with danda and pot, showing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different than Krishna. Gopinath Acharya was telling Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this is Krishna, don't fool, don't mistake. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya initially did not understand. But after this dialogue, he understood very clearly. And so he surrendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he composed 2 very beautiful verses that are shown in this 6th chapter about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he establishes, and he says, let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge. His devotional service and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He is descended because he is an ocean of mercy. Let me surrender unto his feet. So this is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he fully surrendered. And his mood transformed to becoming one of the very intimate devotees, pure devotees of Krishna, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so, when one is humble, even if one may be confused, one can be delivered. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and became one of the intimate associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and helped manage many affairs of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, including his travels to the south. It was he who suggested and introduced him to Ramananda Rai, who we know is very, very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that introduction was facilitated by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So he became very close. Now we're going to see how close. Because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after all the residents of Navadvip left Jagannath Puri, they left. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thought, now I have an opportunity to host, because all the devotees, Advaitacharya and others, were calling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu home for lunch every day. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was lamenting, but now that everybody has left, he is now finds his opportunity to ask. So he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please come home to my lunch for 1 month. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I cannot come for 1 month. And this is very important because, a sannyasi, but even as a grihastha, we should be very mindful of attachment. Enjoying lavish and opulent prasad in someone's home can form this mood of attachment. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I cannot come 30 consecutive days. So they negotiated. They had a little bit of a discussion, bartering, and they negotiated down to 5 days. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and enjoy prasad at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so eager, and we know this very intense eagerness to serve. So on the same day, he said, you come today. Now I remember I did this once to my wife, where I told her in the morning that someone was coming home for dinner that night, someone very important, and she's like, I need warning, I need warning. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his great wife, they did not care. If there was an opportunity, they did not want to wait even 1 moment. Who knows if tomorrow is going to come? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife are approaching their service like this, with great enthusiasm, not knowing even if tomorrow is going to come. So a very important note is that same day they hosted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the offerings, he was shocked. How in just 6 hours You could have arranged such service. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, you are the only one who are doing all of this. But you can see this eagerness of his mood. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had wonderful facilities, full stock of fruits and vegetables. He had a new room constructed that was very intelligently designed, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could enter from the outside, and there was only a passageway to the kitchen to bring in offerings. Because again, a sannyasi, doesn't take intimate association into householders. So this was a way for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to enter and not, forego the principles of a sannyasi by entering the other living quarters of like this. So it was, very nicely facilities done. Even the sitting place, you'll note, he had a nice platform with a white cloth. So the etiquette of hosting someone, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or any Vaishnava, we see in the mood of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya very nicely here. The foodstuffs that were prepared. Oh, Krishna, I hope everybody has eaten their dinner, because when you read the description of the foodstuffs, it is extraordinary. So many items, 6 pounds of the best quality rice, over dripping with ghee. And then there were many different tastes. So when you offer, foodstuffs, you offer varieties of taste. So there were bitter items, there were spicy items, there were mild items, there were fried items, there were sour items. So these different items hit a different part of the palate. And if you see how they arranged, even the arrangement of the foodstuffs, where the rice goes, where the different sabjis go, where the dals go, the sweets, everything is arranged with some thought. When we make a plate for Krishna, we should be thoughtful. How would he enjoy to see this plate? Not just throw everything on there and offer it, but think. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was thinking how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would observe all the different offerings and where he would start. In Bengali tradition, where we start with bitter. So he first takes some Kerala. So that would be on the first part on the left side like this. And it's again, very intelligently thought. So our service, our mood of service should be in that mood. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very, focused on how everything was looking. The pots, when we offer, foodstuffs and make plates, we make sure that the bowls are nicely rounded and heaping, and that things aren't spilling over the edges, and the chapatis have appropriate amounts of ghee and things like this. Again, these fine details we learn when we read these descriptions of these different pastimes. In particular, in this pastime, you'll see many of these nice kind of etiquette aspects in how everything was positioned in the look and appearance. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comments on the rice, saying, Radha Krishna themselves must have enjoyed this rice. It is looking so beautiful, and the aroma is so amazing. So there we see that. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also, very importantly, though he had made so many offerings, both he and his wife, they also had some Lord Jagannath Prasad. And that was the first offering they gave to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were not thinking, eat my offerings first. Eat what I made. No. First, honor, because they knew what was most pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always relishing Jagannath Prasad. So they were thinking from his perspective. Sometimes when we serve, we think from our perspective. But they were thinking, what will please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Of course, from their perspective, they would have been most pleased if he would have honored one of their items. No? But note very carefully in this section, they talk about, first he was offered Jagannath Prasad. And Prabhupada comments in that purport about how it was not mixed with the other, but it was offered separately. So again, this mood, and what was the reciprocation? Sometimes we have doubts. Can I get it done? Can I get it done? In 6 hours, an extraordinary transformation. Right? And so when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had arranged, you can imagine this huge room filled with so many pots of sabjis and dals and rice cake, and sweet cakes and rasgullas and incredible offerings. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and he saw this, and he saw the beautiful asan with the white cloth, he said, "Wow, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you have arranged a beautiful place for Krishna to eat." He thought that was the offering place. But in fact, that was the place that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was asking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to sit and eat. And a very nice discussion takes place at that point, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Take Krishna's sitting place, I'll put it aside, and make me a small plate." He was thinking he was going to take a plate from all of this, not thinking this was all his. You can see the sweet mood. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya didn't say, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expresses, "Oh, you put so much effort here. You don't need to put effort." And he said, "No, we did not put any effort." But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks about the worshipable place that Krishna had eaten. And Prabhupada makes a nice important point. I'll read just the purport. That according to the etiquette, things used by Krishna should not be used by anyone else. Similarly, things used by the spiritual master should also not be used by anyone else. That's just the first two lines of that purport. But we see why we create separation. Whatever Krishna and Guru eat from, use different paraphernalia, we keep separate and use only to serve them. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, remove this seat and white cloth because Krishna has sat there. I cannot sit there. And again, he is Krishna himself, but in the mood of a devotee, trying to show us. So the Bhattacharya then replies, "Both the food and the sitting place are the Lord's mercy. If you can eat the remnants of the food, what is your offense in sitting in the place?" And basically, he explains that yes, you should eat all of these things. Then a very beautiful exchange takes place. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "This is too much food. I cannot eat all this." And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, does he reply, "Yeah, I know it's a lot. Eat what you can"? He says, "Heck no. Listen, you are eating 52 times a day in Jagannath temple. You are Lord Jagannath. And each offering has hundreds of pots. You ate all the offerings of Govardhan. When Nanda Baba did the Govardhan Puja, they made mountains of rice and mountains of sweet, and you ate all of that. You are eating every day in 16,108 palaces in Dwarka. So then you're telling me you can't eat just this much? This is just a tiny morsel." And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, a sannyasi should not take so much. Madhukari means you take a little bit. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, compared to what you normally eat, this is nothing. Now sit down and please eat. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was quite pleased by the mood, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya at this point knew this is Krishna himself. He came from a mood of impersonalist thinking, I'll teach this young boy, to now fully surrender, understanding this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is the transformation of heart that occurs when one has the mercy and association and a humble mood. So a very sweet exchange takes place. And this offering was being done, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally obliged Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, washes his feet, offers him the nice place to sit, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu begins to honor. Now, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his daughter was married to Amoga. Now, Amoga had one quality that was not so glorious, in that he was a fault finder. And he was always looking for faults of others. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, knowing this, was sitting with a stick at the doorway, just making sure Amoga would not come anywhere near the door. But being in service, maybe getting some items from the kitchen to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for refills, he had to leave his spot, and Amoga came in. And Amoga comes in and says, what is this? You are a sannyasi. This is enough foodstuff for 10 to 12 people. And blasphemed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for breaking the sannyasi principles. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife were devastated. His wife was Satira Mata, by the way. And they were devastated. She was banging her face and saying, "Let my daughter be a widow." She was so devastated by this action. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was just laughing at the whole incident. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya begins to chase Amoga with a stick. Of course, he was much younger and ran away. And he came back and was calling, Amoga many ill names. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained, very, very calm and very, very cool. So in this pastime, we want to see this idea. Now, in this, we should look at this from three perspectives: the offender, the recipient of the offense, and the observer. Three things, three aspects: the offender, the recipient, and the observer. Okay? So we'll look at this from all three angles and see how all three acted, and in the end, how they all achieved perfection. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just showing us the way, but we'll see how all three of them. So, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife were completely devastated that their guest, the Supreme Lord, was insulted in this way, to the point that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wished that his son-in-law would die, and that said his daughter should leave him. I mean, very strong statements were made. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very calm, and so he decided that I need to bring some people. So he began to eat all of the different offerings, knowing that would pacify Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his great wife. And so he ate very, very nicely and honored all of the different preparations, trying to calm the heart of both Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife. And afterwards, Bhattacharya washed his feet, washed his hands, offered him some nice things to chew on, some spices and cardamom and cloves, these, kind of our modern day breath freshener, if you will, after dinner mint, that you can see that's a modern convention that actually originates in our Shastra, this etiquette. And then offered him a garland and sandalwood paste, and this way very nicely. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya begged for forgiveness. Now you can see the mood of the observer, right? He's begging for forgiveness. And I'll read text 259. One more thing. So he's begging for forgiveness, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he says, "I brought you to my home just to have you blaspheme. This is a great offense. Please excuse me. I beg your pardon." So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, as the observer, considered that he had created the offense. He took responsibility for that action. And he thought, very, very difficult situation. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "What Amoga has said is correct. Therefore, it is not blasphemy. What is your offense?" So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the recipient, he did not take offense. He was not saying, yeah, that's okay. He did not take the offense. Though it was offensive, the recipient did not take offense. So after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was really enthusiastic and eager to beg for forgiveness. So he says, falling down at the Lord's feet, he followed him out. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said many things in self-reproach. The Lord pacified and sent him back to his home. Again, self-reproach. Meaning, he was reflecting on his own misgivings. Not blaming his son-in-law, but saying, because of my own shortcomings, this has happened to you. Normally, when something doesn't go our way, we look, who can I blame? But we never look in the mirror. We never look in the mirror. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is taking responsibility for this action. And it's a very important observation for us. So now, brace yourself. This is a little bit strong, but it's worth, understanding the severity of Vaishnava Aparadha. So in verse 261, if the man who blasphemed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is killed, his sinful action may be atoned. So now you can see, what one must do. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives many wonderful comments about the dangers of Vaishnava Prad. Those sinful people who blaspheme Vaishnavas, who are all great souls, are subjected to very severely to the punishment offered by Yamaraj. One who criticizes, these are all quotes from different Shastra, I'm just paraphrasing, but this is the purport to verse 261 if you would like to read it again later. One who criticizes Lord Vishnu and his devotees loses all the benefits accrued in 100 pious births. Such a person rots in Kumbhikpaka, hell, and is bitten by worms as long as the sun and moon exist. One should therefore not even see the face of a person who blasphemes Lord Vishnu and his devotees. Never try to associate with such persons. If one does not immediately leave upon hearing the Lord or the Lord's devotee blaspheme, he falls down from devotional service. This is Lord Shiva speaking to Mother Sati in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and controller of religion, he should block his ears and go away if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender, and after that he should give up his own life. So again, I said brace yourself before this verse. But the point of the matter is, of course, from a practical situation, we are not in position, because it says if one is positioned, then one should do. But it speaks to the severity of Vaishnava Prad. One loses all of their pious credits, even just observing it. So we should not let that even enter our ears. Forget about committing it. Even observing it, we should run away, and one should block his ears, Lord Shiva says. So this is the important reaction that one should have. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya shows us this great lamentation, and he thought maybe I should kill him. Of course he couldn't because he's a Brahmana. Then he thought I should kill myself. I'm not a Brahmana, so he decided to basically disown Amoga. And he'll no longer maintain relationships with him. And that was his conclusion. So he abandoned the relationship. And that sometimes is a practical opportunity for us. If we become in association with someone who is blasphemous, we can, again, just leave the association. We don't have to attack. We may not be in position, but at least we can separate ourselves, and we should be very enthusiastic to do so. So what was the reaction? What happened? So the next morning, Amoga became sick with cholera and was dying. And when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya heard this the next morning, he said, this is the act of providence. This is the karma, the reaction from sinful life. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard from Gopinathacharya that Amoga was dying with cholera, and that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife had given up eating, he became extremely displeased, and he ran to go see Amoga. He didn't walk. He didn't think, oh well, he deserves it. He blasphemed me. This is his reaction. No. The receiver, the recipient of the offenses, also remains very humble and tolerant. And so what does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do? I'm going to read. This is verses 273. As soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard that Amoga was going to die, he immediately ran to him in great haste. Placing his hand on Amoga's chest, he spoke as follows. The heart of a Brahmana by nature is very clean. Therefore, it is a proper place for Krishna to sit. Why have you allowed the Chandal of jealousy to sit here also? In this way, you have contaminated the most purified place, your heart. However, due to the association of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, all your contamination is now vanquished, gone. When a person's heart is cleansed of all contamination, he is able to chant the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna. Therefore, Amoga, get up and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If you do so, Krishna will unfailingly bestow mercy upon you. So you can see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took a mood of compassion and went and delivered him, putting his hand on his heart, purified his heart of this fault-finding way. We can beg Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to put his hand on our heart and cure this fault-finding way. Because it's there, at least speaking for myself. But if we pray to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and beg for mercy in this pastime, we can also have this great benefit that Amoga received. After hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being touched by him, Amoga, who was on his deathbed, immediately stood up and began to chant the holy names of Krishna. Thus he became mad with ecstatic love and began to dance emotionally. Amoga then fell down before the Lord's lotus feet and submissively said, O merciful Lord, please excuse my offense. Not only did Amoga beg for the Lord's pardon, but he also began slapping his own cheek, saying, by this mouth I have blasphemed you. He was smacking himself, saying, you can see there was sincere lamentation from the offender. To err is human. Yes, we may make a mistake. But the great solution to any mistake is humility. If we approach it with a humble mood, I didn't offend you, what are you talking about? No, yes, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. If we approach it, the devotee, the Vaishnava, is very tolerant and very forgiving. And so when this happens, if it happens, if we approach it, as Amoga did, with great lamentation and great sincerity, you can see what happened. And after this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pacified Amoga by touching his body and said, you are the object of my affection because you are the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And so, the final comment I'll make is that what gave Amoga his qualification to receive the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was his association with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Again, we see the power of the pure devotee. That the devotee has the ability to please Krishna. And if we can somehow please that devotee, then we have some hope to please Krishna. Vasudeva Datta, if he prays to Krishna for all the living entities to be delivered, Krishna has no other duty but to fulfill that prayer. Amoga, because he was dear to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was quickly relieved of his very significant mistake. And he became a pure devotee of the Lord, ecstatically chanting. So if we see again the three perspectives, the offender, Amoga, lamented sincerely, begged for forgiveness, took a very humble position, and his heart became purified, and he became a pure devotee of the Lord. The observer, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he took it very seriously. He took responsibility, self-reproach, and ownership, and also begged for forgiveness, and was willing to do whatever it took. His wife even saying, let my daughter be a widow, if that's what it takes. So acknowledging the severe and significance of this offense. And then the recipient, in this case Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, teaching us the mood that a devotee never takes offense, is not offended. As we see, Ambarish Maharaj was not offended by Durvasa Muni. As we see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not offended. Lord Nityananda was not offended, by Jagai Madai. The devotee is very forgiving. Of course, that doesn't mean we take advantage of that. But we also have some comfort that if by some reason we do make some mistake, just take a humble position and we can become free of this. So, the final 2 points I'll make. We see the transformation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya from an impersonalist, ego-driven, to a sincere enthusiastic, loving devotee. So much so that he was so attentively and the details serving Krishna. This is the power of transformation that can happen. And the second thing is that this fault-finding nature, we must eradicate it from our heart. And the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can make it happen like that. Amogha was delivered instantly because he was also sincere and humble in his response. So we have many, many wonderful lessons, but now a little bit time has passed, so we'll conclude here with this beautiful pastime of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and all the different activities in this chapter. As I said, over 300 verses, so we went a little bit fast, but so thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Any discussion or comments, or anybody would like to share what their, those who have been reading, their favorite pastimes that they enjoyed, or anything, discussion would be nice, if we can have some.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanva Pranam, Avlod Sri Prabhupada. Very beautiful lecture, especially since we have done this right now and everything is coming back to us. Especially today actually we read this 2.76 verse, which exactly this is what I had in my mind too, the power of association. So despite of all the things that Amulka did, just because he had the association of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the pure devotee, that we have some hope. So this does not give us a license, obviously, to do Vaishnava Bhakran, but if for some reason, so does that mean that unconsciously, if some thought comes like that, so there is some hope? If we have association of great devotees, does that mean that, Prabhuji, here?
What it means is what does the association of pure devotees do? It purifies our heart. And so these tendencies can get eradicated and we can obtain their mercy. But association means, right, what is the two duties of the Grahastha? To chant and serve the Vaishnavas. So association means, we render service to the pure devotees of the Lord. And by that doing so, we obtain their shelter and protection. So that if there is an inadvertent mistake, remember Krishna says, my devotee never perishes. But he doesn't say my devotee is perfect. So we may make a mistake. But if we do, we should be humble enough to acknowledge it and own it. And say, Prabhu, Mataji, I'm sorry I, created this offense or something, of that nature. And whenever there's a humble position, things get resolved very quickly, very easily. So, the association of a pure devotee, still we must bring out and obtain those qualities to approach that situation. Just being in association isn't guaranteed, but if we, take advantage of that association, then we'll have the benefit.
And taking advantage means here serving them and following their instructions. Will that be?
That is the best service, right? Pariprashnena sevaya. Krishna says, you render service. And what is the service? As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed his dear associates, you go out and you spread this message far and wide. So that is the service that the spiritual master is ultimately looking for. So sometimes we think, oh, I'm not in association with my guru, how I can render service? Well, the first service is following his instructions. And the second service is to facilitate in whatever capacity we have with their mission.
Okay, Guruji. Thank you. And then this one also, just wanted to share, I love this Vasudeva Datta pastime, especially when he says that when he's asked for a benediction, you ask anything, then he says that I want to I want you to grant that this request of I will take the sins of all the everyone, even and free them, and so that they can go back to God. So can we say, and obviously this is a higher mood as compared to even Jesus Christ. So can we compare that with Prahlad Maharaj when he was asked by Narsimhadev that he can ask for the benediction? So he also said something similar to that, right?
Very
that,
similar. Yeah, and Vasudev Datta is a incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So they have a very similar mood of prayer.
So it's the same kind of benediction, Prabhuji, or
Yeah.
anyone is higher on the other?
No,
Equal?
you can say it's the same benediction.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, all of them are so sweet, and then we talked about those, I think somewhere in the middle when they talk about all the food stuff to be offered to the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so they talk about all the vessels to be different, so just like what we do with Guru Maharaj also when he comes. So all this, we could just relate that very much to what we do. So,
and that's why we do it. We are following based on Shastra, right? So everything that you see is based here, even how we serve and how things are done, the etiquette, right? When you see how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya receives Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these things we study very carefully, and then we apply them. These are practical. They're not, just sort of theoretical, but we apply them, and we practically approach our service in that way. When we serve Guru, when we serve Krishna, you may be cooking for Krishna, when you make plates for Krishna. You should think how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife presented the offering to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that way, we make our plate for Krishna accordingly. Think. Don't just become mechanical. And by studying these, and even the way they establish the seating positions and all of that, again, our consciousness starts to increase that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for your wonderful realizations. Hope we have more of these lectures whenever you get a chance. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a nice summary of what we've been reading for the last 2 months. As Balika Mataji said, we read some of these verses this morning, and there was a question I had on text 300 that I didn't get a chance to ask, so maybe you can answer.
Okay.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had so much mercy, and he excused Amoga for his offense. And it says towards the end of the purport, consequently, if Amoga were not excused, his punishment would have directly affected Sarvabhauma. Amoga's death would have indirectly brought about the death of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. How would that have been?
Yeah, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would have been partially responsible, right? Because it happened under his sort of, technically, you can say, he was guarding the area to keep, this type of situation from not happening. And it was ultimately his family member who performed that, right? So, like a father or a husband, Prabhupada writes earlier in these purports, has a responsibility to deliver that whoever is dependent on them to the Supreme Lord. So in this case, Amoga, being basically a family member, is responsible for the activities and shares in some of the punishment. And so when we speak about death here, it's really speaking from a spiritual perspective, not necessarily from a material perspective.
Oh.
Right, so it's because the Vaishnava pride, it kills our devotional service. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Hati Mata, right, the mad elephant. So speaking about it from a spiritual context, not necessarily from a bodily context.
Oh, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Okay.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
as you started with Raghav Pandit, like who offered prasadam and all kind of offerings. And you said that, God was really eating that prasadam and honoring it. So in this times, like generally in this Kali Yuga, whenever something is offered, especially in the temples or people who are really offering them with complete love and trust, is might be a childish question, but does God honor this? Because like probably we may not have any kind of a proof or something. The way you are saying that when Raghav Pandit was offering, God really ate it. So how this will happen in this Kali Yuga?
Yeah. So importantly, first of all, this took place in Kali Yuga, right? Because this took place only 500 years ago. So we understand this is very recent. But in that pastime, if you read carefully, it says sometimes the coconut was gone, sometimes it was not. But it was always accepted. So, because Krishna, again, he eats all his senses are multifaceted. So he can eat with his eyes. He can see with his ears. He can see with his mouth. Like each sense can do all other functions. So Krishna, just by glancing upon the offerings, has consumed it. And now, how we know is because that's exactly what Krishna says. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachti. If you offer it with love and devotion, he says, I will accept it. That's it. That's all we need. Krishna has said it directly himself. If you offer to me with love and devotion. So as long as we are offering with love and devotion, we can have absolute conviction that he has taken that offering. And as we continue to honor prasadam, our faith in that will build. Because we see the amazing experience it has. And you may wonder, sometimes as you're beginning, there's a unique taste of prasadam. Well, our Shastras explain that taste. Now, from a material perspective, this may sound a little funny, but that is the saliva of Krishna. That the actual sweet, special essence of prasadam that we tangibly observe, that is the saliva from Krishna. And you'll have an experience. You can make the same item, and those who cook have this experience. You can make the same item in the temple and offer to Radha Kunj Vihari, and you try to come home and make an offer to your deity, it's not the same. It's not the same. You're the same cook, same ingredients, it's not the same. There's a difference. And that is because, again, under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, those offerings become even, of course, prasad is on an absolute platform, it's all perfect, but there is that, level of depth of service. So it is absolutely happening because Krishna says, I accept it, as long as it's offered with love and devotion. So that's our proof.
Thank you, Babu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It was very nice to hear again, because this nectar, it's worth listening how many times, any time. It's very nice. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Okay, anything else? If not, we can pray, we can discuss again. What is your next chapter now?
Yes, Prabhuji. Every chapter, Prabhuji, please. Yes, Prabhuji.
Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan. Yes, we'll do next chapter.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to all of you because from your I was able to
relished this wonderful pastime. It's very, very sweet. I've read it several times, but they had one more time to read it, so I'm grateful to all of you. So yes, we'll discuss next chapter sometime. Maybe we'll do it in sections, quarter, so we don't have to go so fast through it all. Maybe something like that. Thank you very much for your kind blessings, and anything we can do, please let me know. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.